and you are writing or speaking, you are forming sentences either in active or passive voice, consciously or unconsciously. You may find yourself asking what active voice or passive voice are, and more importantly, how can you use it in writing or speaking? In this video, you will learn how to determine the difference between active and passive voice. You will also learn the importance of using the active and passive voice in both oral and written communication. Now, let's dive into our major topic, the active and passive voice. Let's start by defining active voice and passive voice. In active voice, the subject performs the action expressed by the verb. There are two terms that you need to bear in your mind, the subject and the action or the verb. Commonly, subject is defined as the noun or pronoun talked about in a sentence. However, in active voice, you must always remember that subject is the door of the action. It is because in active and passive voice the one who is doing the action, and the one who is receiving the action is the center of the concept. If you notice, the word action is always mentioned. Yes, you heard it right. The action that is being referred in the sentence is the verb. Perhaps, in your elementary days you always define verbs as action words. But, I want you to know that, not all verbs are action words. Is, are, was, were, am, has, have, had, are also verbs, yet they do not express action. They are commonly called linking verbs or auxiliary verbs. Anyway, that serves as your takeaways in this lesson. Now, let's go back to our major concern. A while ago, it was mentioned that in active voice, the subject performs the action expressed by the verb. To illustrate the definition, take this example. James finished the homework. Remember the important terms, the subject, or the door of the action, and the action itself. In sentence given, James finished the homework. What do you think is the action in the sentence? Correct. Finished is the action of the sentence. Now, who did the action? Who finished the homework? Of course, it is James. James is the one who finished the homework. Therefore, James is the subject of the sentence. Since the subject, who is James, is the door of the action, which is finished, the sentence is in active voice. How about the rest of the sentence, which is the homework? What role did it play in the sentence? This is what I would like to introduce to you, the object. If there is the door of the action, there is also a receiver of the action. And that receiver of the action is referred as object of the sentence. The object in the sentence is the receiver of the action. Looking back in our sentence, what did James finish? The homework. The homework received the action acted by the door, who is James. Let's try to put that in this way to better understand the concept of the object. Paquito punches Cho. Paquito is the subject of the sentence, who is the door of the action, which is punches. And this action is acted to, or received by Cho. Who received the punch? It's Cho. So, Cho is the receiver. Therefore, Cho is the object of the sentence. In terms of sentence structure or how active voice is constructed, active voice usually follows the basic sentence pattern, SVO, or subject, verb, object. Let's bring out the given examples to illustrate this. James finished the homework. Paquito punches Cho. The subjects are James and Paquito, while the verbs or actions are finished and punches. And last but not the least, the receivers of the action, or known as object of the sentence, are homework and Cho. Alright, I guess that's all for the active voice. Moving on, let's talk about passive voice. In passive voice, the subject receives the action expressed by the verb. Example, the homework was finished by James. In the given sentence, the subject is the homework, and the verb, or the action is, was finished, that was acted upon to the subject by James, who is the door of the action. Let's analyze the sentence again. James is the door of the action, and James' action is finished. James is doing it to his homework. So, homework is the receiver of the action done by James. Another example, Cho is punched by Paquito. Who do you think did the punching? Correct. It's Paquito, the object of the sentence. Who received the punch? It's Chu, the subject of the sentence. Since the subject receives the action, the sample sentences are in passive voice. The sentence structure of passive voice is subject, plus auxiliary verb, plus past participle, plus the preposition, by, plus object doing the action. Looking back to our example, Chu is punched by Paquito. Chu is the subject, is the auxiliary verb used, punched, which is in the past participle of the verb, plus the preposition by, plus object doing the action. But, I want you to know, that not all passive voice are constructed in this way, especially when the door of the action is unknown, or not so important. Example, COVID-19 cases were closely monitored. This is an example of passive voice which is different from what is being introduced to you now. Who monitored the COVID-19 cases? It is not stated. The door of the action is not stated in the sentence. Anyway, this will be fully introduced to you in next chapter. As of now, let's stick with the basic by using the preposition by. To better understand the active and passive voice, let's bring out again our examples used a while ago. James finished the homework, which is in active voice. The second one is, the homework was finished by James, which is in passive voice. Look closely on the sentences. In active voice, the subject is James, but in passive voice, it becomes the object doing the action. In active voice, the object of the sentence is the homework. While when it comes to passive voice, it becomes the subject. Did you see the difference between the two? Did you notice the changes in the verb use? But the rules in changing the verbs will be discussed in the next video, transforming active voice and passive voice. Now, let's wrap up the basic concepts of active and passive voice. In active voice, the subject is the door of the action, while in passive voice the subject is the receiver of the action. In terms of sentence structure, the active voice follows the basic sentence pattern, subject, verb, object, or SVO. On the other hand, passive voice has subject, plus auxiliary verb, plus past participle of the verb, plus preposition by, plus object, who are the door of the action. Alright, that's all for this video. I hope you can now determine sentences in active and passive voice. Thank you for watching.